is rising. It's your night. Just cut us free to a new horizon.
Welcome. Service is just about to start. There are a few things we want to let you know before we get started. If you're new with us today, we want you to feel at home and know that this is a safe place to explore your faith and experience God. For us, church is so much more than just a weekend service, and we want you to know that there's a place perfect for you at Fountain Springs. One of the best ways you can get connected with us is to fill out the connection card in the seat back in front of you. Take that card out sometime during the service and fill out as much information as you feel comfortable sharing. And then, after service, drop that card off at our Next Steps area for a gift that's our way to say we're glad you've joined us today. And that's it. Later this week, one of our leaders will connect with you. An incredible way to stay connected with our community, receive incredible resources and opportunities, is by downloading our app. From events and workshops to message notes, sermons, and weekend set lists, you can find all you need in one place. Download the app today on any mobile phone app store. Fountain Springs Kids is dedicated to partnering with parents to lead children to become fully devoted followers of Christ. Through age-specific lessons, activities, and small groups, your children, 6 weeks to 5th grade, learn about biblical truths and real-life application. Don't miss this great opportunity to help your children learn more about God's love. Check out FS Kids this weekend. Wherever you are in life, you have a purpose, and we hope today we can help you along that journey, experiencing and connecting with God in a real and authentic way.
Hey guys, welcome to Fountain Springs. We're so glad you're here tonight. If you'd stand with us as we sing. Sun is rising, your mercies are new. You're already chasing with relentless pursuit. want your love. I'm after your heart and all that you are. Treasure I find, know what's your love. I'm after your heart. Treasure I find, know what's your love. I'm after your heart. Treasure I find, know what's your love. I'm after your heart.
Let's keep singing about what God has done for us in our lives. He has made a way. Let's sing this out together. You make a way when I cannot see. You are my strength. Though my heart is weak, you won't let go. You take my place on this battlefield. You go before. You're my sword, my shield. I'm not alone. Sing it out. You fight for me Oh, love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still, yes, you call me. Deeper still, oh, you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, your good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Father, it's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I'm perfect in all of your ways. I'm perfect in all of your ways. Perfect in all of your ways. It's who you are. It's who you are. Perfect in all of your ways. I'm perfect in all of your ways. I'm perfect in all of your ways. It's who you are. You're good, Father. Sing it to him. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I just want us to sing that one more time and stay in this moment. And I want to invite you to raise your hands if you would. Let's sing this. Good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Sing one more time. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Sing that chorus one more time. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Amen. Can we thank him together for who he is and what he's done for us? Yeah. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat.
There's a line in that song that I love. It's like where it talks about that he calls us deeper still into love. And I think one of the reasons why that resonates so well with me is just the opportunity that we have that when we come into relationship with him, and if we're seeking him out, he calls us into something deeper. It's not just a, hey, make sure you get to church on the weekends and be a part of what's going on, but really, it really is a longing to understand and be a part of what he's doing. And I think sometimes that comes with some really exciting stuff, and it comes with really some great opportunities. I tell my girls all the time, I said, listen, if one thing your dad wants for you is love God and do cool stuff. And I'm glad that I get to be a part of a church that we get to do cool stuff. And at the beginning of the year, around Christmas time, we started talking about Kids Matter and really having that Kids Matter initiative. And that led to just really wanting to come alongside kids in crisis. And we know the numbers in our region, in our community, and in our state. And we're not okay with that. We want to be a part of the solution when it comes to foster care and adoption. And we want to be able to help and benefit those agencies that are a part of helping make a difference. Because we believe it's vital, because we believe we have a loving God, because we believe He's a good Father, and because we believe that that's what He would want us to do. And we're excited about that. And so there are a couple things that you need to know that in the midst of that, what are important steps? And the first step is just this. When you choose to be a part of giving here on a consistent basis at Fountain Springs, that goes into helping be a part of giving aid and giving funding to those agencies and saying, hey, we believe in you. We want to see God use you and work through you. We're going to be with you in walking this out in that regard. And there are multiple ways you can give. You can check that out on the app or the website. If you want to give cash or check, you can go ahead and do it in the blue giving boxes in the lobby. But the second thing is that we have a meeting coming up that we would love for you to be a part of and connecting with. You can find information and get registered on the app on it, but it's on March 10th here at West Location. Put it in your calendars right now, 6 o'clock to be here. Just your presence here does not mean that we will sign you up and send people your way. It just says, hey, I'm interested. I want to have some information. We're going to have those questions answered for you and help you take that next step, because we believe that this is going to be a powerful movement and God's going to do some amazing things. But I just want to welcome you. I want to say thanks for being here, for what God's doing, for being a part of coming here to Fountain Springs this weekend. Welcome. But I want to take a moment right now. This is a time in the midst of our service where we just take a moment to pray and ask God to continue to meet with us. Would you join me? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today, for this time to engage in singing. Man, just the God that you are, that you call us into relationship, you call us because you love us, and you have amazing things for us, and I'm excited about that. God, I pray that you would help us be faithful in seeking out, showing people who Jesus is, and loving them like you would desire for us to love them. I thank you for the time we're going to take here in a minute to dive into the Well series. And as we walk this out, and as Pastor David shares, I pray that you would just help us to continue to seek after you and help us to be a faithful church that believes that showing Jesus to anyone and everyone matters each and every day, at our workplaces, in our homes, and in our community. God, we love you, and we thank you for all this. Amen.
Hey, church, I need to talk to you about summertime. Now, I know some of you are like, oh, summertime, we're all longing for it, but every summer we send students to camp. There's one of the greatest experiences a student can have, a teenager can have, is to go to a camp led by their church, because you get to connect to God and their peers. It's an incredible experience, but frankly, camp is not a cheap thing. You send a teenager off somewhere where housing and food and activities, that's about $350 per student for a student to go to camp. And there's a lot of things we can fundraise for, that we can have them go ask other people for money, but spending a week in an intensive learning about Jesus and dedicating their life to God, come on, I don't think they ought to raise money for that. So here's what we do as a church. You and I, we think about summertime when it's not summertime, and we do scholarships for students. Here's how this works. Students need to help get money to go to camp. You and I, we don't buy candy bars or cookie dough or donuts. I wish they sold donuts, but they don't. We don't make them sell things. You and I give to a scholarship fund, send a kid to camp. And some people sponsor a whole thing, $350, where people give above and beyond, and they send a kid to camp, but not all of us can do that. Some of us can maybe do half of the cost of a camp, and frankly, some of us can maybe do $10 or $25. All of us can participate in helping send a kid to camp, but there's only 3 weeks to do this. It's a small window because we got to pay to help send the kids to camp, so you got 3 weeks. I hope you will join Katie and I, because we do this every year. Join Katie and I in creating a scholarship for a kid to go to camp.
everybody. Let me just give you a disclaimer right off the bat, okay? We've been talking about something as a church for 5 weeks. This will be the 6th week. Now, I'm not hating on you, but not all of us have been to church every week over the past 6 weeks. Okay, so there might be a few of us, as I begin to talk about stuff, you're going to be like, what's he talking about? I haven't been around. Okay, the internet. You probably have heard of it. You can go on the internet and get all caught up this week, okay? So I'm going to talk about some things that are built upon what we've been talking about as a church, this idea of wells. So I understand, just acknowledging right now, that some of us need to get caught up. Not hating on you. I want you to be a part of this. So the crux of what we've been talking about is that you and I need Jesus. We just do. And I thought I'd show you something that was said about you, frankly, actually you, not just the person next to you. It said about you. And when it was said is important. 700 years before Jesus walked this earth, it was said about you, but let me show you. Surely God is my salvation. Now, here's why this is said about you. This is what's called a prophecy. 700 years before Jesus walked this earth, was said that when you and I would find out who Jesus is, that you and I would say this. Not exactly in these words, but that we would feel this and say this. It was said that you would say, surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord himself is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. Now watch this last part. With joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation. This was said about you. That one day you would hear who Jesus is. Someone or some group or somehow you would hear about Jesus and how he is your salvation and mine. It was said before he walked the earth, he shows up, proves it to be true. And in fact, here's what I walk you. I know some. Our biggest problem in this world is not the government. Okay? Now I know I see some of you are disagreeing with me right now. The biggest problem in this world is not technology. It's not the cell phone or the computer. The biggest issue at hand right now that we're facing is that people are not quite sure they even need Jesus. In fact, what I would tell you is you and I have got to understand that we so desperately need him. Our marriages need him. Our schools need him. Our workplaces need him. Every one of us needs, our relationships need him. But I got to give you some information, and I'm not sure what you're going to do with it. But I thought, I'm going to give you full disclosure, full detail, just so I'm going to share some things, and I don't know how it lands because some of you aren't quite even sure what you think about church, and you're like, I'm not sure if I agree in organized church, and so that means you like unorganized church, which I don't understand that, but I'm just saying, I know what I'm about to share with you. I hope you hear that the premise is you need to know who Jesus is, and there's other people who need to know who Jesus is. But things are breaking down in culture, which I think you would agree with that. You'd be like, yeah. But specifically, they're breaking down in the church. Let me give you stats for those of you who love this. Past 20 years, this has been used as information. In the circles that I run around and I know about, this has been said for the past 20 years to be very true. 3,700 churches close in the United States of America every single year. 3,700. Maybe you can remember. Maybe the church you grew up in or went to isn't in operation where I know there's churches that are now coffee shops and churches that are now retail places. And sometimes a church sells to another church and the church closes its doors. It's over. Statistically, for the past 20 years, 3,700 churches a year close up. Now, again, if you went to math class, you're like, but David, I mean, there's 4,000 churches starting, brand new baby churches, starting in homes, starting in schools, building their own buildings, all that kind of stuff. Starting in math tells us that this isn't so horrible. The problem is this doesn't take into, in the equation, the population increase. So in some instances, this is still really bad. Let me tell you something about the church. Jesus started it. And Jesus specifically even told his disciples, I'm going to build the church through you, and the church has been the vehicle of delivery for the gospel. So whether you or I disagree with church and all that, I just can tell you Jesus liked it. and he thought it was good. And this should be somewhat alarming, but now let me show you in the current day. Experts are now saying this, that we have moved into a new season of the church where 5,500 churches are closing every single year in the United States of America. New ones are starting about at the same rate. Some would even argue less. If you remember math class again, you remember you got to take into account population. This is bad, so let me tell you the new need based on experts. According to experts, 8,100 new churches are needed every single year to start just to take care of the churches that close and the population increase. Now, church, you likely have an opinion about it. You likely have a thought, a process in your brain that begins to unfold, like, here's what you think church is. But I think we can land on, this could be problematic. If you don't know math well, I'll tell you more. If this trend continues, do you understand there will be towns and cities without churches? And some of you are like, but they're still Christians, David. There are. Let me show you something that's been said about Christians. Barna Research, if you aren't familiar with Barna Research, they're very good, ethical. It's not manipulated numbers. There's no agenda to it other than here's the truth. In 1993, the 90s were good, weren't they? In 1993, a question was asked to a group of Christians. I'll tell you what the question was. Do you think it's your responsibility as a Christian to show people who Jesus is, to tell people about your faith, to make sure that this gets passed on? And as you might even expect, in 93, 89% said, yeah, as a Christian, it's my responsibility to show people who Jesus is. So now you understand in 2018, the same question was asked to a different group of Christians, and the responses came back different. 64% said, yes. Yes, I should. It's my responsibility to show people who Jesus is. Let me help you with the math. 25% in 25 years. 1% per year. Let me help you make it personal. I'll make it personal for myself, and you can transfer it to you. Katie and I's youngest son is Titus. He is walking thunder. What I now know is based on statistics. When my youngest son turns 21, he will live in a world where the majority of Christians do not show people who Jesus is, do not think it's their responsibility to do so. We're 15 years away from that. So some of us may be like, well, I don't know what I think about church or organize this or that. That's a problem. I've been thinking about one day I'll have grandkids. Do you understand what that means? For even my youngest kids and my grandkids, they're going to grow up in an environment where the minority of Christians think it's of some value to show people who Jesus is. I would argue that rate is going to increase. Typically, when things decline, it gets faster and faster as it goes down the hill. So, we have a whole crew of Christians who aren't willing to tell people about Jesus, show people who Jesus is. We have churches that are closing their doors. However, this completely contradicts Jesus. Do you understand that? It completely, it's the opposite. Do you remember opposite day when you were in elementary school? It is the opposite of Jesus. In fact, if you've never really spent time reading about Jesus and what Jesus specifically taught, I thought I'd show you. One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fish for a living. If you don't know what that means, they were fishermen. I'm just helping you out. Jesus shows up, right? He calls out to them, come follow me. But notice, he doesn't stop at come follow me. You catch that? He didn't say, hey, I got some stuff. I just want to pass it on to you. I just want you to learn some things and then go back to your seat. He didn't say that. Come follow me and I will show you how to fish for people. Now, first you're like, fish for people? They don't find them tasty. I don't want to fish for people. It was a metaphor, okay? He was saying, in other versions, even talking about, I will teach you to be fishers of men. He was saying, I'm going to teach you how to show people who I am so that then you can go do that. You follow me? That's what he said. So you can go do. That's more about Jesus. Students are not greater than their teacher. I know if you're a teacher, you're like, but they think they are. But they're not great. But the student who is fully trained will become like the teacher. In other words, will do what the teacher does. Okay? And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. You notice it's not like, hey, I just washed your feet just so you would know personally how to have good hygiene. Do you see what I'm doing this? Oh, I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. This is Jesus teaching. Let's go to the most popular. Jesus came and told his disciples, hey, I've been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make. That appears to be not a go and sit down. Go and just get yourself saved. Go and make disciples of who? Like who? Of all nations. Baptizing them. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples, teach them to obey all the commands I have given you. In other words, show them who I am. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. I mean, that's just a few parts of the Bible. You've got churches who are closing in droves. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. You've got Christians who are like, yeah, I don't know if I need to show anybody who Jesus is. I'll just kind of let them figure it out on their own. Meanwhile, you have Jesus who's like, hey, here's what I want you to do. You need to go and make. You need to go and tell. You need to go and show people who I am. You should be wondering, what in the stinking world happened? What happened between Jesus saying, here's what you should do, here's what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ, here's what that means, to how do we get to where we're at right now? Where some of us are scared to death to tell anybody about Jesus. I can tell you. This happened. Christians grabbed the title without the calling. I can't tell you, I got some opinions. But at some point in history, Christians went from, not only do we need to know about this Jesus guy, we got to go tell everybody we can. We're going to tell our family and our friends and even, some of our enemies, and we're going to get this out. To where we moved to where some people, I said, well, maybe we don't tell everybody. Then I kind of moved to, hey, I paid for these seats, and so those are my seats, and so that's what church is. I'm just going to go for an hour a weekend. Do you see the progression that it's moved into a consumer-driven Christianity that says, yeah, I'd like to go to heaven, but all the other stuff, let's leave that to the fanatics. When perhaps Jesus was like, I only called you to be a fanatic. So throughout history, by the way, I think it's funny that you might interpret me just saying that as though I'm somebody who has enjoyed history all my life. I tried to skip history class as much as possible. Do not do that for those of you who are still in school. It's a bad idea. It makes it really difficult to get good grades. And then what's funny, God's sense of humor, is that I married a history teacher. that was funny. And so I began to learn the value and how cool history is and what it teaches us. And there's great things that happened in history. The reason you and I right now you and I are even talking right now about God, about Jesus, because some people didn't just say, yeah, I want the title, I want the calling. One of them in particular that I really respect, a guy named John Wesley. John Wesley, without the internet, which is crazy, without the internet, preached nearly 40,000 times to people. It's estimated now that his impact has impacted about 30 million people. You act like that's normal. 30 million people. In fact, he said something that I think is worth passing on to you. Do all the good you can, okay? By all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. Oh, that's good. What if our world was full of this, right? Like, what if you worked with this? You'd be like, I'd like that job, please. Thank you very much. Sign me up. I don't care what it pays. If work was like this, students, if you went to a school like where all the students were like, yep, that's what we do. Can you imagine church like this? Perhaps if more Christians were like this, maybe people wouldn't say, I don't know the point of being a Christian. You don't look any different, sound any different, behave any different. You seem irrelevant to me. We need more of this. I agree with them. And don't disconnect the fact that this guy preached to over 40,000 people, 30 million people impacted for the gospel. They get to know who Jesus is. You're like, well, this appears to be his approach to life. So what would happen? Just for a moment, dream with me. What would happen? What would happen if a group of Fountain Springers were to say, let's go after that? Here's what I'll tell you will happen. All future generations can have a church nearby who will show them who Jesus is. If you and I look at each day, not as something that we're insecure about, not as something that just happened because that's how days unfold, but what if you and I were to pick and choose and say, each day, each moment, yes, I'm going to live it out like it matters. I'm going to give myself away to this. I'm going to make sure people know who Jesus is. Well, then that would mean you're picking up a shovel. Again, if you haven't been a part of this, I just went really weird on you. Here's what we've been talking about. Jesus was at a well, and he was talking to a woman, and they began just a dialogue about the water in that well, and he said what I read to you even at the beginning, that he was the source of salvation. He was this well. He was this well of water that would resolve what you and I actually crave, salvation, forgiveness, mercy, that we would have that. And if you and I as Christians were to say, okay, if Jesus is this well of hope and forgiveness and salvation, let's dig some of those wells. And so we've been talking about as a church, when you become a Christian, you not only, you go to heaven, that'll be awesome. But you pick one of these guys up. Say, I'm going to spend my life doing this. So we're doing it as a church. If you wonder what we've been about, I just thought I'd bring you up. I've already shared this in a series, but we're going to dig some wells. Here's one. It's our office, but we're going to put a Monday night church service downtown. Now, I know someone was like, well, does God meet with people at church, like when it's not the weekend? Yeah. Most of us know people who work the whole weekend, right? Maybe you're one of them, and this is like your first weekend off. And we have a lot of folks who are like, I can't go to church, and church isn't an option because I have the weekend shift, and that's just how it plays out, and it's not great. And so we're gonna put a location. Monday nights, not at a normal church building. Some of you just need to. Okay, we're gonna go beyond Rapid City. Here's a list for those of you who love lists. And we're going to put locations. We're going to put options that I think will be significant. In fact, some of you are already looking. You're like, ooh, I'm from there, or I know places there, or I know that's a pretty place, so God's probably called me there. Some of you are wondering, it says Cowboy Church. That makes no sense. I agree, but still, there's going to be a Cowboy Church. Across the state line, there's going to be in Wyoming a Cowboy Church that we're going to help and encourage and maybe even be able to financially help them get going. Anyone and everyone matters, right? Yeah. So you and I are faced with choices constantly in life. See, I can tell you right now about you. Right now. You can look at this list and say, that's neat. Maybe you even have an opinion about it. I'm not asking for that. But don't underestimate the fact that oftentimes God puts us in situations and it was all God and it was not even you. So here, let me tell you something about you. God is inviting you, into the spaces where he saves, redeems, and rescues. That's what he's doing right now. Right now. If you've ever wondered, God, will you use me? Will you do something with me in my life? Will you, I want to be a part of something bigger than me. What is it, God? What is it? Right now, he's knocking on your head. Going, are you listening to the pastor? I hope so. God's inviting you to be a part of what he's doing. And In fact, you need to know that your life, how you dig, what you do with this has a lot to do with what you think about God, and he's paying attention. I do not mean that like hey, you better watch out, but in a very intentional way. In fact, let me show you something. Jesus was telling a story. Here's what he says, the master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. He's talking about a guy who spent his day well, used his day right. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. You have been faithful in handling this small amount. See, a lot of times we wait for God to call us into something, like, God, I want to do something big for you. We think it's going to be huge and it's going to be very public or whatever. No, I think it's our day-to-day small amount moments that he's like, I got something for you. I got something for you to be a part of. Your calling could be the job you have right now that you might not even like. Your calling could be one of those locations I shared with you. I don't think your calling is as complicated as we often treat it. So let me get into your business. Your calling is loud and clear. But are you ready and willing? Because you're like, no, it's not loud and clear. I just shared with you people and places that we're going to try to show people who Jesus is. I don't think it can be any louder or clearer than that. Are you ready and willing? And if you wonder what ready and willing looks like, I thought I'd show you an example. Remember when we talked about, the guys getting asked if they'd stop fishing for fish and start fishing for people? Here's their response. And they left their nets at once and followed them. Some of you are like, David, that is very irresponsible. There should be 2 weeks' notice. And don't let our culture leak into this. And now some of us already have excuses, like, David, I've got kids, and they're consuming me. Well, maybe God wants you and your kids to show people who Jesus is. Don't disqualify them because they're young. They may be better at it than you are. What if we did this? Well, we've been doing it, frankly, as a church. Just want you to know that. And I thought I'd help you understand what's been happening. And I think oftentimes we need to know the names. So these are their own words. Tiffany said, my life was very hectic and was on a downhill spiral. I made a lot of stupid decisions and mistakes, plus struggled with addiction. I came to the point when I felt like I couldn't continue my journey in life and realized I needed Jesus in my life. I've given everything to Jesus and rely on him to help me to make decisions. Brian wrote, since being a part of this church, my relationship with God has reignited, and it allows my family, don't miss that, it allows my family to worship somewhere open and inviting. Carolyn said, before Jesus, I felt lost and angry 80% of the time. I felt like I was not enough. Jesus has taught me not to judge the way I used to be open and honest in all of my relationships. I feel a ton of weight lifted off my chest by putting it all in his hands. Will said, I didn't have a purpose. I always felt angry, upset, and unhappy. I didn't find joy in anything. I felt alone. Now with Jesus, there appears to be a trend to the stories I'm reading to you. Now with Jesus, I'm a lot happier with me. He's shown me he is always with me. I worry a lot less. I'm more patient. Katie said, the biggest difference Jesus has made is showing me there's someone who is higher than me and will continue to love me. Jesus continues to tell me there is good and he is the answer. I had to pick and choose. Jesus. You have needed Jesus before you were born, and God knew it. You will always need Jesus, and so will your friends and family. So will your kids and your grandkids. So will your coworkers and even your enemies. And so you really are faced with two options. One of them is do nothing, which I didn't even make a slide out of that one. Here's your option that I think you ought to go for, is go and show people who Jesus is. If you want to know, what do I do with my life? If you've ever been bored with life or discontent, perhaps you'd be willing to go after something like this. Spend the rest of your life, no matter how many days you have, going after this. Where you would say, you know what, I'm going to wake up, your circumstances, situation may not be ideal or great. But what if you and I, Christian or not sure yet, church goer or not sure yet, what if you and I were to say, I just heard this, maybe it was God telling me. What would that look like? Well, I invite you into this. Do this. In front of you, or maybe you're sitting on it, on the seat backs, is this. I want everyone to get this. And when I say stuff like I want everyone to get it, I really actually mean that. I'd like anyone and everyone, all of you, to grab one of this, put it in your hands, at least indulge me for a second. Just grab this, put it in your hands. It's a very simple little card. One side, you put a little bit of your personal information, and you can check there. I'm committed to digging wells to show people who Jesus is. On the other side, it gets a bit more fun. You can check mark whatever you'd like to. Or let me help you even more. Perhaps what God is asking you to do. For those of you who don't like to do check marks, you can do X's. You could do smiley faces. You could do little circles. I don't care what you do. Mark it. It's time that you and I have this kind of conversation. Let's be more than people who want to go to heaven. Let's be a kind of people where we want others to go to heaven too. That's the kind of people I want to be a part of. By the way, if you have questions and thoughts and you're like, I need some more details. Well, guess what? We have a meeting. If you want things answered that you don't have answered yet. By the way, going to this does not sign you up to all of a sudden move to somewhere in Idaho. And you're like, now they're going to make me. No. But if you want to know more details about how we're going to go about doing this, some of you who you need to start your own church and you're like, I don't know how to do it, and you'd like someone to train you, guess what? We'll train you. Go to that. Go to that and we'll help you. But most specifically, I hope you're willing to fill this out. When you leave, you can put it in one of the baskets as you leave, and we'll follow up with you. But I want my son to grow up in a world that knows who Jesus is. I want your kids as well to have the same experience and the generations that follow after. I hope you'll be a part of it. Just so you know, you've been formally invited to be a part of a movement of God. Can't wait to do this. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for this calling. God, thank you for just this moment that you've allowed us to, I think, hear from you. God, I know oftentimes I talk to you about how I want to hear you say something. I want to know what you're talking about. I want to know what you're asking. I want to know what you're calling me to. I want to know some of the details. God, thank you for even giving us those, even in this moment. So, Lord, we surrender this time to you, even our wills. We choose your will. God, would you help us as a church to be a group of people who do more than the title thing? And we be a group of people who goes after your calling and owns it as our calling. I thank you for Jesus. Thank you for Jesus. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
We're going to continue to respond to what God is calling us to do, and we're going to sing here in a bit. But what we would love for you to do is just take this moment as we sing, just sit and read the card, reflect on how God is moving in your life today and how you can be a part of where we're going as a church. And as we sing together, when you're done, feel free to stand and respond. So let's do that now.
Surrounding me, let it break at your name. Still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still. these bones to live. Call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Silence fear. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Silence fear. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Silence fear. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble.
Can we celebrate his name together? Thank him for all that he's done for us. Yeah. Well, if you got a chance to fill out that card, we would love for you to drop it at the doors. There will be baskets there waiting for you. And if you have questions of what the next steps look like within our church and the why behind it and all of that, we would love for you to stop by our Next Steps area and find someone to talk to about that. And we're just so excited about how God is going to continue to use this church to show the Black Hills who Jesus is. Well, next week, we're starting a brand new series called Decades that we're really excited about. And we would love for you to help us get in the spirit of it and just have fun with it. And so next week, we're starting with the 70s. And so we would love for you to show up in your best 70s outfits. And so we hope to see you then. We love you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.